Today, I am joined by Ty Wilson. He is a wedding photographer based in Seattle, where he celebrates passionate couples and he helps photographers do the same while being inclusive and affirming of all love. And on the show today, we are talking about how you can take the values that you hold and use them to guide your business decisions. So, Ty, welcome to the podcast. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
I'm excited about this topic because it's something very important to me. My values are very important to me, and like that was. We'll get into this, like how I named my business and like different aspects of the business are very important and like align with my values. So I'm very excited to chat about that. But yeah, can you give us a little background about Ty, where you're based, what you photograph, what you love doing?
Yeah, I photograph pretty much couples and portraits, so weddings and engagements and portraits, whether it's headshots or like small business branding. Based in Seattle, but work off of both coasts, so I'm Seattle and New York. I spent few years in New York City, so I can't get away from it. I love it.
Oh yeah.
And that's where I am. Those are the people I photograph, and I try to focus on attracting people who are, I hate the word because it's overused, but people who are authentically themselves,
Yes.
but also willing to celebrate that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I agree. I do think that authentic.
I need to find a thesaurus word for it.
I know, me too. Because I go back to the same word because it's such a good word when it's used properly, and not just how authentic has transformed over the last 5 years. But yeah, no, I get that, and I see that through your work as well. That they're not just pretty posed photos, but they're you can feel the personality of the people in the photos as you're looking at it, and that kind of authenticity is what we're looking for. So yeah, I love that. Okay, so Seattle and New York. Where did you begin your photography journey? Did you start in New York and then move to Seattle, or was it like a Seattle then New York then back? Or
I've been all over. I actually started in the Midwest.
Oh, okay.
So I was born and raised in Minnesota, but I started photography when I was in college, and I was in North Dakota, so Fargo, North Dakota.
Okay.
If I start saying words with a lot of O's in it, the accent will come out. Otherwise, I feel like I might be able to hide it.
I was gonna say I wouldn't have pegged you for Minnesota when I met you.
It's like boat, flag, rag, like those words.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so I started photographing weddings in North Dakota. A lot of farm and barnyard weddings, and then moved to New York. Completely different. Everything changed.
Oh yeah.
I spent a year in Dallas, but that was prime pandemic time, so it didn't really count.
Yeah.
And now I'm in Seattle, so I've kind of been all over, but started in the Midwest, and now I work off of both coasts.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like a lot of us who are in the middle states, the flyovers, as a lot of the coastal people call them, we're just I just want to get to either coast, just somewhere that's not flat. And
give me a couple months a year there.
Right. Yeah. We're currently my wife and I are currently looking at some places where we could just go for the summer, and I can start marketing for Houston, Texas, and this other location, and not necessarily move there, but just go spend summers away from the 100 and crazy degrees.
I'll do February in Houston and then July in somewhere else.
Exactly. Yes, 100%. Which we love Seattle. We have some friends up there in the Queens Anne area, and it's just gorgeous.
Beautiful.
All the times that we've gone to visit, it's been a sunny day, at least one of the days that we're there, and we're we always hear about it's just dreary and like misty almost every day, and then we're there and it's like sunny, and we're like, okay, this is
It
nice.
gets a bad rap.
It does, yeah.
But it's our winters. So once the rain sets in for
Yeah.
the year, it's like, but it's only because we don't get a ton of snow. That's all in the mountains, which is a couple hours away.
Mm-hmm.
And Seattle is usually beautiful.
Oh yeah, yeah. I love it up there. What brought you to Seattle?
I've actually always wanted to be here.
Nice.
So like even when I was in college, I was like, I will become like a Starbucks barista if that's my in. Like I will do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And I finally got out here, but I like it because there's a city aspect to it. It's not too terribly large. It's not, New York City, but it's still a city.
Right.
And it's very close to the outdoors, and I love the outdoors.
Yes.
And when I like get to the ocean, it's not like white sandy beaches, which are beautiful. I'm just more of like, give me a rocky coast and like cliffs, and I'm at home.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's so great. Like being there. I know this is not an ad for Seattle, but it sounds like that's what
it can be.
That's what this podcast is turning into. Everyone move to Seattle. Go hang out with Ty.
Yes.
I will do it for sure. But yeah, I've always wanted to live somewhere where there are mountains nearby and there's beach nearby, because I am very much I was going to say a water body, but I don't think that's a phrase. I love the water. I just give me a lake, give me a pool, anything, a large bathtub. I will splash around and have fun. And I also love hiking and being in the mountains, and just all the nature and the different colors, all the different shades of green through like the moss and the trees, and everything is just, it's so great. I'm gonna have to like, after this call, I'm gonna like jump on and see
book a ticket. We've
when
got
the
a
next
spare
flight I
room.
can get. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, okay. So I'm very interested. This is a question that I've been asking, I don't know how long now, but I love all the answers that I get through your career, or maybe even before it. Has there been a piece of advice or a lesson or something that you have taken that has changed the way that you look at your business or just life in general?
Yeah, there's actually been a couple. It's funny because I get this question a lot as far as just like advice that has changed your life, but then when I apply it to business too, I feel like there's two pieces of advice that have nothing to do with each other that have blended together to really like change how I see things. And the first one, more just like personal, but my mom always told us growing up, she would always tell us, you are no more than anyone, but you're also no less than anyone. And I was like, that, like, I didn't appreciate it at the time, but growing up afterwards, I was like, actually, that's like a very valuable thing to like take to heart. Yeah. But then in tandem with, I think the best advice I've gotten in relation to business is do personal projects, or like do work that you find joy in. And so kind of partnering that with, you're no less than anyone or you're no greater than anyone, I've been able to free myself up to try new things and do things that I'm like, you know what? Nobody ever has to see this, but I'm going to do it because I think it'll bring me joy. And the more I've started leaning into some of those things, it's completely changed how I approach business, because I'm like, you know what? I'm doing, my couples the best service if I'm truly loving what I'm doing. And so doing more personal projects and finding work that I love allows me to fall in love with the creative process again. But then also give more of who I am and the skills and the values I have to those projects, and then to those couples who align with that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that, because it's like, I feel like oftentimes, especially those of us who have been in the business for years and years, and like if you're in the same location for 5+ years, you're often shooting at the same venues, you're going to the same parks, the same locations for engagement sessions, and you kind of get into a rut of monotony. It's all the same. And even though it's different for your couples, because this is their first time getting their engagement, you're just like, Yeah, I mean, this pose over here with like silhouetting them against this tree, I do this all the time. Like, it's just kind of boring and you get stuck in that. But doing those personal projects, that's a way. I love doing personal projects. I actually have one coming
Yeah,
up this coming Sunday as we're recording this, and
it's amazing.
because I love Halloween and all things spooky and creepy and stuff, I was like, this is very juxtaposed to weddings and all the bright and lovely, and yeah. So I've got a few people who also love Halloween, and we're just gonna go create some creepy stuff,
Yeah.
and I've found that doing that, it's really I don't know, kind of broadened my view of how to use light, because it's often like twilight or dusk and just there's
Yeah.
not a lot of light left, and using beams of light hitting a tree or something, and just the a little bit more creative than what I would typically do on a photo shoot. So I love that you mentioned that about personal projects, and I'm excited because I haven't really done a personal project in a while. You know,
Yeah.
blessing of having a busy season, but also it's just like I
By the
just
time you get to the end of it, you're like, I need to recharge.
yeah, I need to recharge and do something on my own. So
Well,
that's
I feel like the more drastically different the personal project is than the work you do, like the more freeing it is and the more creative you can get in the process, and then
oh
even
yeah.
like bring that back to, what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how started getting back into shooting film a few years ago,
Hmm.
because I went all digital because I was like, I'm not going to worry about, I had graduated college, and that's the darkroom that I was using was at the
Yeah.
college, and I was like, I don't even know where I can develop my own film now. So I went into digital, and then a few years ago started doing more personal projects, and like photographing my kids and photographing just like street photography on film, and then that has now been incorporated into my wedding and couples work.
Yeah, and I would encourage anyone to start shooting film. Like it's funny because like
Oh yeah.
I heard a lot of people doing that and like talking about the similar things. I was like, that's so like cliche, and then I started doing the same thing, and
Uh-huh.
like actually no, it completely changes how you see things. Like actually, I just got back from Hawaii, and now I've got to send
Nice.
off some film. It's like just here on my desk.
Oh yeah.
It just changes how you like operate.
Yes. Yeah, and when you're shooting and you have 16 frames on a roll, and you're like, I've got to make this frame count. It's not just going to be like, oh, that's pretty, click, and this one, click, and like, why don't y'all go over there and like dance or something? And you're just like,
Yep.
and just like the continuous shutter all the way. But it's much. I found for myself shooting film, I am much more intentional with how I shoot, and that carries
Yeah,
over to my digital work as well. That I'm
absolutely.
much more intentional, and not just, oh, I'm sure I'm going to get something.
Yeah.
But I'm intentional, even though I'm taking way more photos on my digital cameras. Uh, but yeah, I'm more intentional with those photos, and I'm not shooting 7,000 photos at a wedding anymore.
Makes your
And
life
having
easier. You have
it
less to
does
call.
less to call, less to less time to upload later that night. So
Yeah. I feel like
I'm
it
all
also
for
made
it.
me appreciate the imperfections more too. Because, like,
Yeah,
I'm a lot more intentional with the photos, but also, like, if something's slightly off, that's the one frame I got, and it's beautiful,
yeah.
and I still love it.
Oh yeah, and we're also seeing that because I feel like film is having a comeback. There's a lot of people
Oh, yeah.
that are shooting film these days, and we're seeing a lot more of like the slow shutter, and the shooting at 1/15 of a second, and just getting the dress going all crazy, and like
Yeah.
people's faces not completely in focus, and maybe a little bit blurry because they were moving while they were going in for a kiss, but it's still, that's the frame you got. And even
Hmm.
moving into digital, like people shooting that way intentionally,
Yeah.
which I also have been shooting that way intentionally, because it's just, yeah, there's something about those imperfections that makes it more real.
Yeah.
and it feels
like
less...
invites you into the moment.
Yeah, it doesn't feel as staged, because a lot of wedding photos, a lot of couples photos can feel staged, because these digital cameras are... I keep motioning to this camera because I have my mirrorless up here as my webcam right now, but yeah, like digital cameras, they're so sharp, and they can make things look a little bit too, like, a little surreal and not so real. Sounded like I just said the same thing. But yeah, okay, I love that. I know that we're like our main topic today is talking about our values and how we can use the values that we have personally and in our business to guide those business decisions. For anyone listening who's like, Ty, that sounds great, but I have no idea what my values are. Like, what could you give us a little, like, what are some I was gonna say objects. That's not the right word. What are some examples? There it is. What are some examples of some values, or how we can even like kind of look out and seek out our own values?
That's great question, because I think that was one of the hardest things for me, is like, what are my values? Like, once I thought about it,
right, yeah,
because I had a list of like what I thought my values were, and then in practice I realized, like, maybe I'm not as fiercely passionate or loyal to that value as I feel like I should be, or the world says that we should be. And so some of the values for my business is body inclusivity, like people of all sizes and shapes. I think there's beauty in all of that. Same with all types of love, whether it's a heterosexual couple, a same-sex couple, any type of polyamory, even gender expression and skin tones. I love seeing like the full spectrum of everything that life has to offer.
Yes.
And also just like the uniqueness and the imperfections in people's personalities and how they express themselves, both how they think that they should present themselves to the world, but then also how they truly are as well. And so those are some of the things that I value, and also being an advocate for those people. So this isn't for everyone, but I'm like very politically vocal on my social media channels.
Yeah, same.
And some people are not for that, but it's one of those things that I value very closely. And so I realized, okay, if I'm going to say that I value this, I need to show it as well. And so I think like really good exercises for finding out what our values are is come up with like a list of what you think your values are, and then see if you'd be willing to like defend them on a public stage against people who do not agree with you. Like, you're the only one in the room with those beliefs. Are you willing to go to bat? And then you can kind of shape, okay, what are the most important values that I have, and then kind of learn your own way to incorporate them into your business. Not everyone needs to be as loud as I am. But there's different ways that you can incorporate these values into your business and into your life, just by how you live, how you talk to people, and present to people. And it's always a learning as you go. I still even now am learning new things that I didn't realize I valued as deeply as I do, or some things I'm like I used to be extremely passionate about this, and now I'm realizing maybe it's not as important as I thought it was. And so it's always an ebb and flow.
Yeah, and it's just as we are as people, like evolving and what is really important to us in like 2022 right now, 2012, John, like I was really passionate about different things than I am today, because the world changes around us, and we change, and the people in our circles change, and yeah, I think that's great to like come back and revisit those values and ask yourself, like, is this still something that I'm passionate about? Yes. Okay, cool. Let's keep doing it. Or, actually not so much now. Or I don't feel like I need to
Yeah.
be as vocal about it. Or
Yeah.
I need to be more vocal about it. Which I think there's a good way of going, like if you are someone who wants to separate business and life and like some more, because as I am also pretty politically vocal on my social media and all that, and through the last 5-ish so years, that has attracted some but has repelled quite a few,
Yes.
and I think that can be scary for some people, where they're like, I don't want to go out there and like show these values. I want to be a little bit more neutral. Um, but a quick like word of encouragement for that is, you want to repel and you want to attract, because whenever you are you, it's
Mm-hmm.
you're unique. You are being you. You're not just being a neutral person that's just going to be like everyone else. You're going to attract the people that really want to work with you and love that you're vocal about different values, and you're going to repel people that don't like that you're vocal about certain values, and that's cool, because you probably may not want to work with them in the first place.
Yeah, it might be a little bit more draining, and I
Exactly.
think because it's a very scary thing, especially like as you start to do it, because
Yeah.
you are going to turn a lot of people off, because it, but it's because you've built up this false sense of identity, or people haven't seen who you truly are, and so they don't actually identify with who you are. They identify with who what you've put out there in the world, or the
Yeah.
parts of you that you've hidden. But it also doesn't mean that you can't be, you can't show grace to people who disagree with you.
Exactly.
That's one thing. Like I'll be very vocal, but I also have a lot of grace for people who have differing opinions with me. I'm all for open dialogue, and I welcome it. I will be very pointed, but I still open it. And I have no disrespect for anyone, but I will, kind of push back on them and make sure that they actually, are willing to stand behind what they say or the values that they say. And I want people to do the same with me.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's what we need more of in the world, is that civil conversation, and being able to have disagreements with other people, but speak to them still kindly, because they are another
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
And I've been actively practicing this for probably almost 10 years or so now. Once I moved out of my small little town where everyone was pretty much like me, looked like me, thought like me, and then moved to a bigger town, moved to Austin, and then I was like, oh,
Yeah.
like around other people and like seeing other cultures and seeing other lifestyles is like, oh yeah, this is very different, and I've been actively trying to have those civil conversations with people, and oftentimes we are pretty aligned with the values
Yeah.
of of love, or the values of being kind or respectful, or whatever. It kind of like whittles down to that. It's just different expressions of it, if that makes sense. But
Absolutely.
yeah.
Because I even see that specifically with, like, as a gay man, I,
Hmm.
obviously value same-sex
Right.
relationships.
Yes.
And that's not something that everybody does, or, that not all wedding photographers want to embrace. And it might be unfortunate, but I also, like, have no problem with that, which is very different than some people. Some people are like, you're terrible. And
Right.
I'm like, you know what? No, like, I get it. I'm not here to change anybody's beliefs. I'll have a conversation with them, but, like, if somebody wants to be respectful, but they also want to, stay true to their values, that's fine. Just make sure that that's what it's about. And so, like, a lot of times I tell people who, don't want to shoot like a same-sex wedding or a same-sex couple, that's fine. Make it very apparent before anyone, reaches out to you. so that they don't waste their time. They don't get hurt reaching out to you for you to, turn them down. Because I don't think anybody truly wants to be, nasty or hurt anybody. It's like, just show those values up front so that people know, okay, are these my people? Are they not?
Right.
And that comes back to, building those values in and making them apparent in your business.
Yeah.
You'll attract and repel the right people. They won't waste your time and you won't waste their time.
Exactly. Yes. And that idea of like showcasing like where you stand and how you feel and who your target client is very important. And for those, because I'm in Texas, very very conservative state. Not a lot of gay friendly wedding vendors, and for that, like most of my couples have been straight white couples, and trying to like show that inclusivity with having, I think, 3 couples over the last 10 years of business, three same-sex couples over the last 3 years or 10 years. That's a little bit more difficult to showcase, but having those photos on your website, sharing on social media, having all that kind of stuff where people, there's no question, they don't have to reach out to you and be like, so are you okay with us? But it is apparent by going through your website that you are, and that you're a safe vendor to reach out to. I think that's a good thing to think of when, whether it is same-sex marriage or like body inclusivity, because if you're just showing these thin people all over your website and all over your social media, and like, sure, that's usually what gets picked up by publications and all that, but if you can be mindful and be like, actually, I'm gonna put this couple that maybe they're a little bit heavier, or maybe they they don't look like the norm or the Hollywood type. Showcasing them on your website is going to attract more people and make them feel more comfortable.
And if it means re-editing the same wedding 3 times as you grow as a photographer, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I should probably go back to like one of my 2019 weddings and re-edit that. I've changed a bit over the last 3 years. But yeah, no, I think that's good. And like you were saying, with identifying your values and just like making a list, that's so important, because you can have certain values that you hold important, but you may not know what they are. Because I remember when I was bringing in associate photographers and bringing in videographers and like building my team bigger, I wanted to have that like those core values of the business. And for me, being a solopreneur, doing it on my own, those kind of came through without knowing. And once I sat down and started writing down different values, I was like, oh yeah, like this is a value that I do hold. How can I show that in my business? How can I use that to make different decisions? And with that, I mean, like, how can we? I mean, we've talked about inclusivity quite a bit, which is great, and how, like, other values that people might hold, how can we incorporate that into our business and use those to lead decisions?
It really comes down to like what you're putting out there, and also how you're educating the people you work with. So the first thing people see is either going to be our website or social presence. So visually making sure what's out there is aligned with your values. Same with the words that you put out there. So another value, especially like out in the Pacific Northwest or for photographers who work in the outdoors a lot, is the idea of, leave no trace, or, no trace,
Yes.
being good stewards of the earth, and building those practices into how you photograph weddings, whether it's elopements or intimate weddings, and even where you're taking your couples or where you're taking your clients for photo opportunities. Make sure that you're, incorporating those beliefs into it. Don't take someone to, kind of a part of nature where the ecosystem is precarious and you could potentially damage it, and then blast that photo somewhere. One, don't do it, but also, like, if you put that photo out there, you're welcoming other people to do the same thing.
Oh yeah.
And so if you're wanting to be, a good steward of the earth, showing those, showing images like that or taking clients into those situations wouldn't align with those values. And so making sure that you find locations for that, but also educating those clients as you have conversations with them, because, you might have a couple who wants to have like a beautiful elopement in the mountains, but they might not know the idea of like, oh, hey, like we could really damage, this field of wildflowers if we stray from the path.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that reminds me of, I had a couple that we were looking at doing an engagement session in San Diego, and they sent me this location. They were like, we love this location. We go on walks here. This would be so great if we could get photos. And me being from Texas, I was like, all right, let me do a little research, because I've not been to this path. I need to look it up. And through looking it up, it was a nature preserve. And I was like, we can take photos on the path there. Like, we're not jumping that rope to go out on the cliff and take photos, because a lot of the plants there were protected. A lot of the wildlife and the lizards and everything that you would see just walking the path there, that ecosystem is dangerous and will get damaged if we're just traipsing our human bodies through there and like throwing my camera bag down on a cactus and stuff. But through doing that, we were able to find another location, very similar, same view of the ocean and everything. But it was open to the public. We weren't destroying any wildlife. So yeah, I think that's really great, and something that you don't always think of, especially, from Minnesota or from Texas, or where it's just like
you can go anywhere, no one cares.
Yeah, as long as you're not like jumping into someone else's barn over here, like we're okay. And but yeah, like that forethought, and that shows a lot of professionalism to your clients too, that you're not just like, oh well, it should be fine, like we'll do it. Or like going to botanical gardens or something where there is a photography fee, but you're like, it's cool, I'll just like act like this is a book bag, and I'll hide that I'm taking photos, and it's like, we don't need to be deceiving in order to get the photos that you want. So.
Yeah, and there'll be even photographers who will do that, like, because I feel like everyone wants, or well, a lot of people want to like shoot a wedding in Europe, and a lot of people don't put in the time to learn, okay, what are the visas that we need, or they just say, I'm going to sneak it in and do it. It's like, well, make sure that you're not, going against what your values are.
Canada, for sure. Yeah. They will take your memory cards from you if you do not have the correct visas. Yeah. So beware of that. Any Americans going up, or really anyone from non-Canadians going to Canada. But yeah, look, whenever you're getting into international weddings and photo shoots, like look up that visa information and what you need to do. And sometimes it's gonna cost some money. Sometimes you can build that into your package price,
and sometimes it means you can't take the wedding, or you can't.
Exactly.
And that's unfortunate, but
yeah, it totally.
If playing
happens.
by the law is one of your values, then
right, yeah, yeah. So okay, so what are a couple ways that the listeners can do, like to implement their values into their business, once they've had their list and they're looking through, they're like, okay, cool, this is a value, other than, I know we've kind of already talked about showcasing that on social media, on your website. What can we do, or what does that look like? Maybe even a couple examples of values.
Yeah, it really comes down to like a holistic approach. You have to live it and walk it. So how you interact with people has to reflect that, even outside of business, right? So you have to live the values that your business has. So in everyday conversation, in the conversations that you have when you're booking your clients, in how you present even wordings on captions or things like that you share on social media. Those are the easiest lifts and the first things that you can start to implement, because you don't need any type of visuals to back it up, and you can slowly start to layer on photos or visuals that also align with some of those values, and keep going from there. It's hard to say what values can be, because they're so different for anybody and everybody. For some people it might be they truly value escaping their hometowns, like traveling, seeing the world, engaging with cultures outside of their own. And so showcasing some of those things is learning about other cultures, highlighting other vendors or people of those cultures who can speak to those topics. Maybe some of the values that you have are really getting raw and deep and intimate with people emotionally, and sharing that. So maybe that's a value that you have, and it's like, okay, well, how do I show that necessarily? Well, maybe you post a photo from an engagement session, but then you share an anecdote from the relationship that you've built with this client. So it's pairing all of those things together, and just walking what you're saying or what you're wanting to say. And it doesn't have to be shouting from the rooftop, these are my values, but as you can do it in subtle ways and incorporate it. And I think a lot of people don't realize that their values come through a lot louder than they think, just based on how they're living and what they're doing. So if you're not being intentional about it, something's still coming through, and you might want to see, okay, is this what I want to come through or not?
Yeah. One of my values is integrity, and whenever I tell someone this is the deadline, that's when they're going to have their photos by then, no matter what. And that, I didn't realize that was a value for me until I really started looking at when I started writing down different values to incorporate into the team, and I was like, oh no, that's very important to me, that when I say that I'll be at a photo shoot, I'll get there early, so that I'm there whenever they arrive. And even if that means arriving to a photo shoot 30 minutes early, I'm scheduling that in my calendar. It is not 6:30 that I'm arriving. It starts at 6, and I need to be there by 6, and then I can hang out. But yeah, that and photo delivery and the whole, over or under under promise, over deliver. I always get those mixed up, and then that's not what you want to do.
Over promise, under deliver.
Yeah.
No,
not that one. But even that kind of thing is something that I didn't realize was a value of mine, but looking at my business, you could see that it was, because I wanted to show up quickly for leads and new inquiries, and I wanted to be there with them as they're going through, and also being honest of, no, I've never photographed at that venue before, but here's what I do whenever it's a new venue, and also new venues excite me, and like my creativity is off the roof because I'm just like, this
so
is all
inspired,
new.
yeah.
I'm excited. But yeah, that sort of thing, I didn't realize was one of my core values, and now it is, and I can speak to that through, through copy, through posting on social media, all that kind of stuff. Like you were saying with, taking a beautiful photo and then, speaking to one of your core values, and that also helps with that writer's block of like, I have no idea. Like, I need to post something on Instagram, but I have no idea what to talk about. Or I need to figure out a new reel or TikTok. And you can just do a TikTok where you're talking about your core values. And that is going to impress and attract the people that align with those values and be like, yeah, Ty is the one for me. This sounds amazing. Let me follow, let me book. But yeah, well, awesome. Ty, I've loved this conversation. I think that is some really great actionable steps of moving forward for those who don't know what their values are, to identify those and then taking those and implementing them into business. So I have loved that. Thank you for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Before we kind of wrap up and you can share where people can follow you and everything, there's part of the show that I like to do where we talk about what we're loving this week. It could be, a new movie, a TV show, a book, something, could be anything. What are you loving this week?
What am I loving this week? I'm torn on this because I'm not like obsessed, but I find it intriguing. I'm really into the new House of the Dragon, as well as the new Lord of the Rings show on Amazon.
Yes.
And it's not because I'm like, oh my gosh, they're doing an amazing job and I'm riveted by it. It's because I want to see what they're doing with it.
Right. Yeah, more.
Like, where is this going to go?
Yeah. Yeah, I have not started either of those. But I am also very intrigued. Just I don't know. I think being a photographer kind of ruins me for watching movies now, because I'm just like looking at the cinematography and thinking of like, well, how did they light this? Because I know it's not nighttime. Like, did they shoot during the day and like all that kind of stuff? So I know that watching both of those would just be my what is it? The director of photography brain is just going to be all over the place.
And I feel like that's part of the intrigue for me, because I'm like, it's very fascinating how they've filmed this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. Well, I'll probably end up watching both.
If they're terrible, I'm not recommending them for their content.
This is a photography type intrigue. Yeah, it's cool. Awesome. That's cool. Let's see. I am loving this week. Oh, I have it right over here. I'm loving this little guy. It's a paper shoot camera, and it's like super thin. It's a digital camera.
I feel like I just saw an advertisement for those.
I'm gonna take a picture of you. There we go. But it's super cool. They're a friend of mine on TikTok had one and was just showing like what they were taking photos of, and the photo quality is actually really good. Because I used to take just like point and shoot, like disposable type film cameras, but reusable, because I'm not gonna just throw away cameras. But I used to take disposable type, just point and shoot, f8 film cameras to my receptions, and I'd just give a couple to the wedding party, and just like, here, take a few photos, pass it on to someone else. Whenever it stops advancing, bring it back to me, please don't break it. And they just kept breaking because people were trying to jam it to the 37th frame, and there was not one there. And so I got this guy, and it works really well in low light too. I mean, not great, but like the photo quality of just this point and shoot is really cool, and it's fun, and I can hand it to the kids. And like, we recently went to the beach, and I was just snapping photos of them playing in the water, and it turned out really good, coming back and looking at it. So
I'll have to look into that.
yeah, for sure. Well, sweet. Okay, Ty, where can people find you online? Where can they follow you, see your photos, follow you on Instagram, all those kind of things?
Yeah. Well, I'm on Instagram at Ty Z Wilson. Z as in zebra. It's my middle name is Zachary, so at
Okay.
Ty Z Wilson on Instagram. Also, tyzwilson.com. That's my website. Those are really the only two places that I have anything.
Cool.
Feel free to slide into my DMs if you guys want to, just chat about anything that we've talked about today, or anything else. I'm here for it.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, cool. Yeah. And those of y'all listening on Spotify and Apple and all the different places, whenever this is released, I'll have all that in the show notes, and you can just scroll on down and click on over to Instagram, and say hey to Ty. But yeah, well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John.